Hello everybody, it's Andy here from the Movement Project, and today I'm going to be discussing, does consuming milk keep our bones strong? There's a lot of misinformation online, and I'm going to try to wade through all this by looking at the research and to see if there's any evidence to back up this claim. So there's a lot of reasons why milk became so popular in the UK. A lot of this was in the 1930s, after the First World War. There was a lot of malnutrition in school, and in the late 1930s, 1937, there was a famous investigation conducted, and they found that the children that had malnutrition and low income, there was a huge link to underachieving in schools. So the UK government went about trying to think of ways to improve the nutrition of children within schools. So this led to the UK government introducing the School Milk Act in 1946, and this was with the aim to curb malnutrition in these schools. And this makes a lot of sense when we consider that if these children didn't have a good diet, milk contains a lot of energy, protein, carbohydrates, minerals and vitamins. So this makes a lot of sense. And then fast forward to the 1970s, milk companies were spending vast amounts of money on advertising, and some of the claims that they made was that consuming milk was great for our bones because it contained a lot of calcium.
And everybody knows that I am the greatest. That's in the boxing ring. But when it comes to drinking Unigate milk, hey Humphrey, he's the king.
Them bones me calcium. Them bones me calcium.
So the question is, in 2020, do we actually need milk? Especially when we see the rising rates of obesity, especially in children. Do we need something that contains a lot more calories? And can we get our calcium from other sources? So the first thing we'll do is look at the research and to see if there's any link between consuming milk and having lower instances of fracture rates or having weaker bones later on in life. A meta-analysis of prospective cohort studies and randomized controlled trials found that calcium intake is not significantly associated with hip fracture risk in women or men. This included in total 170,000 women with nearly 3,000 fractures and 70,000 men and 200 hip fractures. This lack of association might be due to them just looking at calcium intake and not milk consumption, which could be different. Therefore, I looked at another meta-analysis of prospective cohort studies. This found that when looking at 6 studies of over 195,000 women, 3,574 hip fractures, that there was no associative correlation between total milk intake and hip fracture risk. Lastly, a prospective cohort study found that on a 22-year follow-up in 96,000 women and 51,000 men, found that there was no link between a greater milk consumption during teenage years and hip fracture risk in older adults. There was a small study that I found that concluded that people that were allergic to milk had a higher rates of fracture. I thought I would include this study for balance, but maybe there are additional causes for this finding. As we can see from the research, there doesn't seem to be any link between milk consumption and our bone health. Now, this doesn't mean that milk is evil in any way. I think it should be classed as any other calorie drink. It can be good for a treat, and it can be used in combination with other foods, desserts, that sort of thing. A lot of the problems when looking at nutritional science is that it's not always black and white, and there are so many different situations where certain foods may be beneficial and others where they might have negative impacts. This goes the same with milk. I think if you're a individual or if you have a child that is very picky with their food, doesn't like a lot of variety, then milk can be very useful. As I stated before, it does have a lot of vitamins, minerals, protein, energy. But if you're quite overweight or if you have a child that seems to be a bit more on the heavy side, consuming a lot of milk is probably not going to be the best idea. So if you want to keep your bones healthy and ward off something called osteoporosis later on in life, you have to stop thinking of your bones as something that unalters and doesn't change once they're developed. They're like any other tissue. So same as your muscles, if you were just to eat a lot of protein and then just relax all day on the sofa, your muscles aren't suddenly going to get really big and strong. You have to stimulate them. Whereas a bodybuilder would go to the gym and lift weights, it's the same with our bones, that if you stimulate them to stress, so weight-bearing exercises, your brain will think, okay, we need to lay down more bone tissue and make them stronger. So then it will absorb calcium from your diet and lay it into the bones. There are other reasons why our bones hold on to calcium, because it is an essential mineral and something our body needs for a lot of other processes. But obviously I'm just discussing bone health, but a good way of doing that is doing weight-bearing exercises and keeping fit and active. active. Okay, so I'm just going to go over a few tips about how to keep our bones strong and healthy. If you did want to know more information, I'll put a link in the description box below. This goes to an article that I write that always corresponds to every video I make, and this is where you'll find all the references that I list or state in this video. So some of the things you can do is make sure you're having enough, obviously, calcium and vitamin D. The vitamin D helps with the calcium absorption. The next thing you can do is make sure you engage in regular exercise. Ideally, something that's weight bearing or resistance type training. So this could be anything from lifting weights, just going out for a walk, running, racket sports, anything like that will stimulate your body to lay down more bone tissue. So the next thing you can do is eat foods that are good for your bone health. So these are things like vegetables and fruits. This has an effect on our body that makes sure that our blood is in a state where your body isn't trying to reabsorb more calcium. So try to get a good variety of fruits and vegetables, and this will also help with your bone health. And last thing you should do is try to avoid smoking and try to limit your overall alcohol consumption. So no surprises there, smoking is pretty much not good for anything. Alcohol in moderation is okay, but obviously if you're more at risk, you can reduce this down and this will help with your bone health. Okay everybody, thanks for watching the video. Remember to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Remember, you can also head over to my website, themovementproject.co.uk, so you can get my newsletter every fortnight. Thanks very much for watching.